Alright, folks, well, welcome to America Off the Rails. We are new to Spreaker, so I'm going to give you a little bit of background. Been hosting shows now over on Blog Talk Radio since February. God, has it really been that long? I guess it has. We have several going over there. We've decided we're going to start trying to expand our lineup a little bit, so decided we're going to start playing with some things over here. This show was a solo show over there, hosted by yours truly. I'm Robert Rout. I typically go by several nicknames, most of which aren't fit to be mentioned on the air. One I've had for quite a while, though, is Double R. Kind of obvious when first and last name have the same letters. So normally when I host things, I either go by Rob or Double R. The graphics for this show will say Double R, all that fun stuff. But just to give you a little bit of background on what we've got going on, this is the Common Ground Radio Oklahoma channel. What we're going to try to do, currently founding a company called Common Ground Media Group. It's based out of Oklahoma. We're going to have audio, print, news type stuff going on. Even in the works with getting a small record label going so we can start producing our own stuff to use during shows, concerts, other events. Also partnering with a new startup local charity that I will have some information about later. But enough about all the fun stuff. Yeah, really. Anyway, this one's more of an impromptu show, to be honest. I planned on starting this show at about 8:30 this morning, and then I started getting phone calls from people that needed help. And then I decided, it's been kind of a hectic morning. I'm going to go ahead and push this back to Thursday. Then I remembered that my good buddy Dave does his music show over on BTR on Thursdays. So I really didn't want to step on his toes, and I had a few minutes, so I kind of really wanted to test a few things out here, see how things were going to sound, and go from there. Also give you guys a little bit of intro, because some of you that are listening to this, whether it be live or the Memorex version later, know all this, so I apologize. But we are hoping to branch out to folks that haven't heard anything from us before. So, like I said, just trying to give you a little bit of information. I myself am 40 years old. I've lived in Oklahoma for the majority of my life. As a teenager, I did move around the country quite a bit. My mom married a gentleman in the Air Force, so spent time in the Seattle area, then suburb of Seattle, Kent, and then we moved a little further over in the Tacoma area, and then after he retired, we moved to Delaware, where I was there for about a year, and then things kind of went south, so we moved home. And I've been back ever since, good, bad, or indifferent. And there are days when it's both. I have been involved in law enforcement for the majority of my life in one form or another. Most of my time has been spent in the private sector, running a security agency as well as a private investigations firm. I did that for almost 13 years, and then I was actually in that field for longer than that before then. But I basically, after going private sector, realized that I thought I could do a better job of it than most of the companies that were around at the time, and actually did a pretty good job competing with them for over a decade until the I almost said economy until the economy crashed. At which point in time, I basically folded up shop. For several reasons. I noticed a lot of the younger generation didn't really seem to want to work for a living or try to work their way up. So most of the time, even though I spent several hours a day in the field and in the office making sure things ran smoothly, if I ever tried to take a day off, suddenly somebody decided they needed to call in sick. And then the economy started tanking. Businesses that were paying me regularly suddenly stopped paying me regularly. And one thing led to another, and since then I have been in the customer service field. I started out in a technical call center in the Moore area, worked my way up after being there for a year to a mid-level supervisor position, then took on a team lead position, and used that experience to get on where I am currently, which is at a call center for the airline industry. Other than that, I started all this stuff. Like I said, I I guess the Facebook stuff's been going on longer than the radio shows. Dave and I were talking about that the other day. Our Facebook page is now on our main Facebook page is now on its second generation. Started back in last August. Anybody who's interested in looking it up can do so at facebook.com/Common Ground Political Page. Now, for those of you who are conservative or even libertarian, this is one of those. Well, I can't say one of those pages because I honestly haven't seen one like it before. We have admins of all different stripes. So things can sometimes get messy. Things can sometimes get cranky. What we've been trying to do is get people to stop fighting over the 6 or 7 issues that everybody talks about in the news and focus on fixing what's broken before there's nothing left to fix. Little delusional or disillusioned, delusional would be a good word too, about the whole process now. Like I said, it's been going for over a year. Decent following, very little interaction. Usually the admins start screaming back and forth at each other about one thing or another with another couple of regular contributors. There is also a Facebook page for this show. Just started it. Well, actually just restarted it, because it had a funky address, so I wanted to start over. www.facebook.com/America Off the Rails. And that is the page where basically I just kind of say what I want to say and be damned the consequences. Alright, so giving you a little bit of background at this point, I need a little more caffeine. Sorry, it's been a busy day. So we're going to roll a song real quick, and I will be right back.
Understand, this is for your own good. If you do not accept these conditions that will be set before you, they shall be forced upon you, for the good of society as a whole, and the well-being and preservation of a free and democratic nation. Without rules, there is anarchy. And whether these powers fit with your conception of freedom is for us to decide. You're hardly in a position to dictate victory.
The satellite on me now, watching every move I make, recording every word I say. The system says it's working now, self-correcting. There are no questions to be asked, no none to be raised. Am I out of my head? Are they pushing you down? And am I out of my head? Are they pushing you down?
Alright, and welcome back, folks. Again, I am Double R, and this is America Off the Rails. Now, just to kind of give you a general idea of what this show is going to center on, I am a staunch conservative. I don't have an issue with sometimes putting aside issues that I think can best be handled in the home to try to keep the country running smoothly. But I do honestly believe that there are certain things that are not okay. One of those is abortion. I personally think abortion is wrong. I view abortion as murder. However, I also believe I am not entitled to judge anyone who makes decisions differently than I do, which is one of the reasons why I am perfectly comfortable with making that an issue that is handled within a certain circle. My children know my stance on abortion. I've always talked to them about my stance on abortion, even though I live in Oklahoma and I am a staunch believer in abstinence as well. We all know how well that works. So I've also had to talk with my children about birth control and everything else because that's what a responsible parent should do. But that being said, there's so many things that concern me going on around the country right now because of the fact that we have so many parents that are not involved at all. Like the fact that apparently now in Chicago they're going to start teaching, now granted it's age-appropriate sexual education, but they're going to start teaching it in kindergarten. So if anybody happens to be listening in the Chicago area, maybe if you catch this on a replay, because like I said, this is a new channel for us, so I don't know how many people are even listening right now. Can you explain to me what age-appropriate sexual education material is for a 5-year-old? Or, I mean, kindergarten usually ranges between about 4 to 6. Sorry, but at that age, kids should be allowed to be kids. And it should be up to the parents. If a kid is not repeatedly asking questions about where do babies come from, or if the kid doesn't ask the question at all, I really don't think it should be being addressed or approached. It's called an age of innocence for a reason, people. And that's one of the things that's driving me insane. I mean, look, I'm a Christian, not gonna lie, so there are certain things that I do not think are okay. But it's not my place to tell you what you don't think is okay. But at the same time, this whole one-size-fits-all approach that we have to education sucks. Look how well that's working out. We have people who can't read all the way through high school, and they keep getting passed and passed and passed and passed because someone coaches them well enough to pass the test, which is all the system really cares about in the first place. Anyway, like I said, this one is just kind of me letting you guys get to know a little bit about what I plan on doing with this show, which is coming at things from a conservative perspective. Now, keep in mind, I am a conservative. It does not always mean that I associate or align with Republicans, especially lately. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm beginning to see more and more Republicans are nothing but a flip side to the same coin that they're railing against. I'm not sure which one's the head and which one's the tail, but if you look at a quarter, no matter which side you're looking at, it's still a quarter. So yeah. So conservative ideals. Try to bring you news and current events. Speaking of which, I was running errands this morning, which was one of the reasons why I didn't get to do the show at the normal BTR time when we were doing it over there, which was 8:30. Next Monday it will probably, hopefully, be closer to that time. The one thing I do love about the format over here is if something comes up, I can always just hit a button later, and I don't have to run through a whole big mess about rescheduling. Just leave everything up, don't hit a button yet, and hit it when I can, which is why I decided to go ahead and run with the show today. I have to admit, after using the two systems, there are things I like about this one, there are things I like about that one. I'm wondering if at some point I can't find a way to start my own and blend the two things together and get the best of both worlds. Somebody would probably yell at me for that, though. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, current events. While I was running errands today, I started hearing all the news about the shooting in the DC area. Interesting things to think about in that particular scenario. So I'm just going to give you some thoughts off the top of my head. DC is one of the most heavily regulated weapon areas in the nation. Pretty much any firearm that's legally registered and obtained is on file with the MPD, otherwise known as the DC Police Department. There are regulations against extended magazines, regulations against, I guess everybody else calls them high-capacity clips, so I don't want to confuse anyone. There are regulations for pretty much everything under the sun, yet it didn't seem to stop this particular shooting in a gun-free zone. Let that part sink in for just a second. Gun-free zone. I have another word for gun-free zones, or another phrase for gun-free zones. It's called a fish in a barrel zone. I don't like the fact that we live in a world where it's best to be armed if you can and you know what you're doing, but the simple fact of the matter is we live in that kind of a world. Until that changes, all this sunshine and lollipop BS the liberals are throwing at you about gun control, that's not going to fix a damn thing. Sorry, I try to watch my language as much as I can, but there are just times that it comes out. So, apologies in advance. I do tend to get on a little bit of a rant, and when I do, sometimes the anger comes through more than I intend it to. This is one of those issues, though, because I've already seen tweets coming out from folks like Henry Winkler, and oh God, please stop. I like watching Royal Pains. You're part of Royal Pains. Granted, you're a small part, but I may have to start changing the channel when you're on the screen. Why can people who act for a living just do that? Or can they not just do that? I don't need your opinion on everything. I like the shows you're in. I like the characters you play. That should be about as far as it needs to go. Pretty much. So yeah, interesting times we find ourselves in. Last report, there were at least 10 wounded. Unconfirmed number of dead so far. And the shooter was still on the loose. I will continue to put updates as I find them on the Facebook pages that I have control of. And I also... since I failed to mention this earlier, I'm also one of the editors of FreePressOK.com. It is an online newspaper. You can also find some op-ed pieces from a lot of the Common Ground Media Group staff there from time to time. We are also all contributors on the Outer Limits blog. For those of you who, once you get to know me a little bit better, like the stuff I'm doing over here, and you haven't yet checked out Blog Talk, we do have lots of shows over there too. One of them is actually named after that particular blog. He is a libertarian who is one of the admins of my Common Ground page, and he hosts his own show on that channel every Sunday, 6 p.m., so feel free to check it out. We have the Family Factor over there, which is Wednesdays, every morning. Wednesdays, I believe he's running it at 9 a.m. right now. I'll retract that next week if I need to. But you can always go to BTR, search Common Ground Media Group, and find all the shows. We have several there, actually, because we've been running these for quite a while, so there's lots to get caught up on, including some older episodes of this show in its first incarnation. So, what else is going on? Oh, yeah. Putin and Obama. The love story nobody wants to talk about. Okay, no, not really, but still. I mean, come on. Does it frighten anyone, really, that an ex-KGB agent, former head of the GSB, who's a trained murderer, was able to outmaneuver a Nobel Peace Prize winner. I mean, granted, he didn't deserve the damn thing when they gave it to him, but still, just look at that on paper. A murderer outplayed a constitutional scholar who also happens to be a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and we walked right into it. Fun times we live in, folks. We took a dying nation, Russia, for anyone who didn't know, has several 100,000 people exfiltrating every year. They are an aging population. They typically have a very low birth rate. So at some point, unless something changes, as a people, they are going to cease to exist. They had no influence in the Middle East, none. They were actually forcibly removed from Egypt. So they haven't really had any foreign policy in the Middle Eastern area for quite some time. They have a smaller space in Syria, which actually, by our standards, is small. In Russian standards, it's one of the biggest bases that isn't in Russia. But I don't know. The whole thing I just feel like somebody behind the scenes just decided it was time that Obama got. Okay, I'm gonna try to turn my filter back on here. Got slapped across the face. I was gonna use a word that rhymed with witch, but decided not to. I mean, I don't understand it anymore, folks. I really don't. And that's not the only thing where I find myself looking at the world we find ourselves in today and asking what in the world could have possibly happened. I mean, seriously, what in the world could have possibly happened? I don't understand it anymore. I really don't. There may be a little bit of a tone change here. I've noticed in my equalizer, my voice levels keep fluctuating, and I had something called a normalizer turned on. So I'm going to test a few things on this particular episode. If I'd have thought of that ahead of time, I probably should have done it as a podcast so I didn't have to torment anybody with it. But I'm used to BTR, to be honest. There really isn't a podcast option over there. You have to go in, you have to schedule the episode. I mean, literally, down to the minute. Set it for how long you can run it for. You can only do one a day. And you just roll with it. So there are things over here that I'm trying to get used to. So if this sounds a little bit different than it did a moment ago, I'm hoping it means you can actually hear me a little bit better. And we'll just have to go from there. But at this point, I'm going to go ahead and take another little bit of a break while I change gears. This one will probably be a shorter show than usual, only because, like I said, I really didn't intend on doing one for very long anyway. But I do have a few more things I wanted to at least touch on, and again, try to give you guys a general idea of what's going on for those of you who didn't know we existed yet, which is probably most of you. Just saying.
It's cold just in time to learn. You will be first in line to learn. Just in time to learn. You will be first in line to learn.
Alright folks, and we're back, and I said this was going to be a shorter show. I'm not so sure, because I keep finding things I want to talk about in the music break. So, speaking of which, just in case you were wondering, it's about time to sit down, buckle up, and get ready. So, when you hear the following sounds, it means that I'm probably about to go off. One, because now you can't leave. And two, as a warning. Okay, so during the music break, I found a very interesting article. I say interesting, you didn't see the air quotes, but they were there. Apparently, a high school advanced placement history book has rewritten the Second Amendment. And it actually shows a picture of the first. It's got a picture of the page. It says first 10 amendments. The Second Amendment. The people have the right to keep and bear arms in a state militia. Sorry, I'm trying to find my duct tape before my head explodes. Nowhere in the flipping Constitution does it say anything about a state militia. It says, hang on, you know what? Screw it. Hang on. Let me look it up. Hang on, just one moment, please. Sorry, I should have done this on the break. But sometimes when I get going on these rants, I really don't know where they're going to go, because it's not really anything that's ever scripted. Drives some people crazy. I guess you can determine whether or not you're one of the ones that who actually like that approach or not. I will, as I said, in most cases, try to do a little bit more research before I do a show. This one, as I said, I was kind of prepped for one thing, and then a bunch of stuff started happening, so I kind of lost what I was going to talk about today, and then I got busy dealing with some personal issues that I won't go into, which is why I'm going to stop talking about them now. Apparently, my Google Foo is not very good today. Okay, so what it actually says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. You know, you change a few words around and it changes the entire meaning. Nowhere should it have ever been implied that the only time you can ever keep and bear arms is if you're part of a state militia. Militia doesn't mean now what it meant then. Militia could be, if something happened, basically like the whole Paul Revere thing. The British are coming, the British are coming, the British are coming. Do you think that was only an announcement for the folks that were part of the colonial army? No. That was, hey, we have enemies coming. Grab your guns. Do what you gotta do. Protect your own. That's what the Second Amendment is about, people. And that's what we need to remember. Because here's the thing that nobody wants to talk about. And I've seen it over and over and over again. There are people that find ways to make guns while in prison. One of the most heavily regulated, heavily monitored places you can ever be. And people are finding ways to make things that shoot projectiles in a prison. So can we just face the obvious? Unless somebody's got some giant MIB-style neuralizer that they want to strap to the Statue of Liberty in New York and set the thing off and make sure that everybody in the world suddenly forgets how to make a firearm, there is no putting the genie back in the bottle. The only thing you can do is make sure that the people understand how the weapons are to be used so they do not abuse them. I mean, come on. Back in the day, you could roll up with a gun to your high school as a senior with a gun in your truck, in your gun rack. And your principal would come out and see the gun and be like, hey, what kind of gun is that? And they would talk about it. And then he'd go to his car and pull out his gun and say, this is the one I got. Nowadays, you try to do that, your kid's going to jail. Weapons are not the problem. Making people afraid of the weapons is the problem, because not enough people know how to use them or what they're intended for. And then it just all goes to hell. I mean, let's be honest. If more people respected weapons instead of feared weapons, because there is a difference, things would be a lot different. I mean, and as someone who has been in the law enforcement field, I can tell you there are a few things that I do agree with, although I've seen studies that dispute that as well, which is, you know, if someone's going to have a weapon on their person, because in Oklahoma we actually are now an open carry state, I'd rather have mine concealed for a few reasons. One, you never know when you're going to come across some nut job who's suddenly going to decide he's bigger than you and try to take your gun away from you, which is going to lead to an escalation, at which point in time either you're going to be able to subdue them, they're going to be able to get your gun, or you're not going to be able to subdue them, and in the process of them trying to get your gun, you're going to have to do what you have to do to keep yourself alive. So my personal preference is concealed even in an open carry state. But that's my personal preference. But I also wobble, and I have a bad eye. So some people assume that I'm going to be easy pickings. So another reason why I keep it concealed. Because one, I'd rather not them find out the hard way, then it's not as easy to mess with me as it looks. And 2, just makes me feel better, because that way I don't have people looking at me like I'm crazy for walking into a Walmart with a gun on my hip. But that's, again, just my particular preference. But the thing about that is, I'm all for background checks to a point. I'm all for having to make sure that the weapon is registered. The problem that I have with that is, as of right now, there isn't really a safe, effective, and cheap way to transfer registrations between private sellers. I wish there was. Because here's the problem that I've seen come up more than once. Someone buys the gun legally. It's registered in their name before they pick it up. They then, a few years down the road, sell it to person B, who may or may not, at that time, have any type of a criminal record, but then does something silly with said gun. The first person they start looking at is the person who the gun's registered to. Now that sometimes can come out in the wash, and they'll normally make statements about how they sold it to so-and-so, and then some things will point in that direction if it turns out to be true, but they're just things that should be a little bit easier. If for no other reason than because when people do stupid things, it should be easier to figure out who that person was. But I look at that from a different perspective than a lot of people. And also looking at a lot of the stories that I've been seeing coming out about law enforcement lately, I have to admit, there are certain of my brethren in blue, whether they be Leo or security enforcement or private investigators or whatever part of the enforcement group they belong to, especially in the Leo community, though, it seems like either things are being covered a lot more than they were, or things have gotten a lot worse. I mean, you see news stories about tactical teams rolling up to serve warrants, kicking in a door, and it's the wrong house. First of all, when did we start needing military-style weaponry and gear to serve warrants? I mean, understand, as a person who's been in those type of situations, there are times when it's needed, but it seems like they do it all the time anymore. It's like as soon as they have a warrant to serve, it's go in, use everything we've got at our disposal, overwhelming force. I mean, come on, I saw a story the other day about them trying to serve a warrant and they wound up kicking in the door on an 80-year-old man. You know, here's the thing. You guys are the ones that are doing the police work. How do you get the wrong address? It's called do your homework before you kick in a door. It's not that complicated. Especially with the databases you guys have access to. I was making do with half the information you guys could find for 12 years. And I never got the wrong house when I went to go pick up somebody who had a warrant. Or at least if I wasn't 1,000% sure, I didn't go kick it in the door. I knocked on the door and said, hey, this is so-and-so with blah, 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 bail enforcement. I'm looking for such and such. Are they here? No. Well, we have reason to believe they've been reported as being in this house. Is it okay if I search? Yeah. So then me and my team would come in and we'd have a look around. And if they weren't there, we'd go on about our merry way. And if they were, normally they were hiding somewhere silly like a closet or the attic. But we found them. Nobody got hurt. Nobody had a heart attack. And we weren't running around with AR-15s. Although I have to admit, back in the day, I wish I'd have had one. Sorry. Okay. So yeah, for those of you who are not paying attention, they are changing education completely. And they're turning everything on its head. I have seen a couple of interesting stories about Texas. Okay, so for those of you not in the Texas area who may not be following it, Common Core, the new national standards, those have been pretty much trying to be implemented everywhere for quite some time. Texas figured out they didn't want to have too much to do with that, so they said, yeah, no Common Core here. Someone snuck it back in as something called C-Scope with a few changes. Somehow nobody caught it this time. Well, they've caught it now. They are removing a lot of the parts of C-Scope that have anything to do with anti-American kind of stuff. So the only thing I have to say is, living in a red state, one of the reddest states in the country, why our folks here aren't doing something about the nightmare called Common Core, I will never know. I have seen stories about how, as far as they're concerned, as long as you're reading from a phone book for 20 minutes a night, they consider that reading credit. I've seen stories about books that they're going to have to read as part of an assignment in class in high school that I will not mention the title of. You can Google the information, and basically, we're talking like 16, 17-year-old kids having to read aloud scenes that involve penetrating someone from behind and things. I'm just like, is this really something we want hormone-charged teenagers reading with our approval? I mean, come on. I was a teenager once. It's got to be even worse now, because all you got to do now is go to the internet and type porn, and all of a sudden there's like 8 million things you can look at. So, with as much of it as they can already get to, that I'm sure most of them are getting to without us even knowing about it, do we really want to make that such a mainstream thing that they're reading about it as part of a class assignment? I mean, really? Come on. I'm not one to regulate morality. I try not to do so as best I can, because again, those are things that should be being handled at home. But when the schools are teaching my children things that I'm telling them are wrong at home, and they're being inundated with it at school, what am I supposed to do? There need to be some sort of standards. There should be lines in schools that can't be crossed. That should be one of them. You shouldn't be forcing children at the ages of 16 and 17 to read sexually explicit material. Because believe it or not, there are still some innocent teenagers out there who don't go find porn on every frickin' website they can possibly get their hands on. Or from their parents' old VHS collection. Oh wait, sorry. No, I guess that was beta. I forget how old I am. But anyway, I mean, come on. Let's be honest. We were all teenagers once. We all know what they do. We all know what they think. Do we want to add more fuel to the fire? I mean, seriously. I don't understand this country anymore. I mean, come on. Dude, Miley Cyrus can, like, lick a sledgehammer and try hump a wrecking ball, and it's art. Oh, I'm just sorry, folks. I've had a lot going on the last few days, and I've been frustrated about a lot of things, and I've been doing a lot of behind-the-scenes work, so I haven't had much airtime this week. So I'm trying to keep from having a meltdown on the radio. Don't know if I should let that happen or not, at least not on the first few episodes, because I know some of you haven't heard us before. So at this point, I'm going to take another little bit of a break. And like I said, normally, at least over on Blog Talk, I was doing this show for about an hour and a half. We have a lot more airtime to play with here, so as I start being able to do more research, may extend it more. We're typically at about what I consider the halfway mark for the older format show. Probably going to try to keep it as close to that as possible for a little bit. But there are some things I wanted to go over, because we do have sponsors over on the BTR side, and I'm going to bring them over just to give them more exposure. One of them is the paper that I edit for, but I don't actually own, freepressok.com. You can find a lot of articles from us there. We also have a sponsorship through a charity that is being formed that I'll have more information about later. And also, Miss Sherry Britt is my independent Beachbody life coach. She is participating in a program I like to call Free Stuff for Fat Boy. Basically, she has given me a workout video, and she is giving me access to the shakes that they use for weight loss. I hadn't been feeling well for the last few weeks. I'm starting to finally feel better, getting to the point where I'm not coughing nonstop. So I will hopefully be starting that particular program within the next week or so. As soon as I get it started, I will definitely let you guys know. If I like what it does and how it makes me feel, you'll be the first ones to know. If I hate it, you'll be the first ones to know, because I told her I was going to be honest. We'll be right back.
What is the answer? What is your solution? I'd give anything just to hear you speak the truth. I'd give anything to believe in a word that you said. You're the problem. I think you're the problem. I think you're the problem. I think you're the problem. This blue green world may not have the answer, but this little piece of it needs an answer. Who we wronged before, that's still haunting
Alright, and we are back. Again, welcome to America Off the Rails. I'm Double R, otherwise known as Robert Route, and I'll be your host for the remainder of the show. I bet some of you are wishing you had never clicked on that little link that said listen now. Too late. Just kidding. Okay, so what else is going on that I wanted to rail about today? Oh yeah, little more background. Like I said, Facebook page, one of them I've had going now since August. Started it as a conservative page. It was basically originally just called My Two Cents. I was kind of getting on there, railing about a few things. Kind of got bored with it. Decided, I've seen lots of pages that are both liberal and conservative, but I've never seen one that's both. So I reached out to a friend of mine who I've worked with for years, who I knew was more liberal than I did, or than I am, but I honestly consider him more of kind of a JFK style liberal, because he's not one of the types of liberals I'm going to be talking about in a moment. But so basically I brought him on board. We have some issues due to unfortunate circumstances, some from birth, other from other things. And so basically, he is a really nice gentleman with one hand and then a nub. And I have a nice little wobble. And I've made fun of myself about that wobble for a very long time, because I've noticed if I make fun of myself first, it typically stops other people from doing it. Because one of the things about being different that's really frustrating is people often go off of appearance. So because of circumstances beyond my control, I have a wobble. When I walk, I pull to the left. I also have a lazy eye. So at first glance, until you hear me talk, a lot of folks assume that I'm special. And I don't mean in the good way. Which is fine to a point. I mean, I'm not going to lie. When I was a private investigator, I would work the heck out of that angle. I'm not going to lie. There were a couple of times I was doing what I like to call the peeper cases, divorce cases, taking pictures of spouses doing things they weren't supposed to do through windows, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. I almost got busted once outside a sleazy motel. I didn't, because of my wobble, I couldn't move away from the window fast enough when I realized that the subject that I was surveilling suddenly decided he needed to go get some ice. So I'm walking as quickly as I can away from the window. It's like, hey you, what are you doing? So without missing a beat, and I'm not going to do it on the air because I know it will offend someone, but I turned around and mustered up my best special kid voice and told him I was looking for my aunt, who I knew was in this certain particular room, and that I was lost and confused. Well, to his surprise, a few weeks later, I got called to testify in the divorce case. And suddenly, I didn't have special kid voice anymore. So, don't get me wrong. There are times when, in certain circumstances, having people assume something is good for you. But it still really hurts your feelings. Until you get a thick skin about it. And one of the quickest, easiest ways I figured out how to overcome that was to make sure that I was always the one that took the first shot. Because one, if I did it first and they did it back, that made me feel a little bit better about it, as crazy as that sounds. But it also made them understand that while I'm different, I don't really want you focusing on the differences, because there are more ways that we're the same. So see, I went into all that for a reason, because that was the impression I had about this crazy idea I had about a Facebook page. If we could set aside the things that make us all different, the whole, it's okay to have an abortion, or it's okay to do this, or it's okay to do that, we could focus on the things that are broken and find a way to get them fixed. The problem that I'm finding is the more time I spend on that page, and the more points of view I try to bring in, I'm discovering that I was operating under a false premise. I had the false premise that at some point, if we stripped away all the crap, the general consensus was that America was still the best place in the world, the best place to raise your family, and that inherently it was a good country with good intentions. The problem is there is a growing segment of our population who no longer believe this. And this is where I made my flaw, or where I discovered my flaw, because one of the things, since I took for granted that if we stripped everything away, at the bottom of it, the thing we could all build on was America's great, let's make it great again. And there are people who honestly do not feel that way. They think America is the worst place on the planet. They think that capitalism is evil. They think that corporations should be disbanded. They think that we should all basically just sing Kumbaya and suddenly start sharing the toilet paper. And there are really people who think that. I mean, I knew there were some. I had no idea how widespread it had gotten. So that's the thing that started to concern me. Then the other problem is on that particular page, anytime I posted anything that was conservative, some of the liberals would run off. Anytime Dave posted anything that was liberal, some of the conservatives would run off. So it's been kind of a stalemate. We've been at around the 3,400 range for quite a while now, after exploding out the gate after the rename and getting up to nearly 5,000. A lot of them didn't hang around for very long, and we've kind of had a couple come in, couple go out here and there. Lately it's been more out than in. So one of the things that I thought would be a good idea, because we've had some really boisterous leftist commentators on the page, and I was kind of thinking, we have conservative, more of a classic Republican conservative, that's Amanda. We have Steve, who's a libertarian conservative, goes by the handle Otter for his Facebook pages, or Facebook page and his blog. And then we have myself, who's more of kind of a Tea Party kind of guy. And then we had Dave, who was liberal, but more of JFK style. We had my cousin who came in, who was helping us produce all this radio stuff when we first got started, who's more of a modern liberal, but more on just the social issues side. So he had things that he would chime in about from time to time, but as often happens, people's real lives get hectic, and they're not able to do the things they were able to once do. So he contributes to the page, but not that often. So I decided, for a couple of reasons, that maybe it was best if we had a more leftist female commentator. One, because we only had one female admin, Amanda, and two, because there are people that are more left of center than Dave. So after a few weeks of searching, one of the more outspoken female leftists on our page decided she would go ahead and be the commentator, mainly because she threw her hands up in disgust. She said that all we were ever really posting was silly little memes and Tea Party stuff, which Amanda took offense to because she's not a member of the Tea Party. I'm like, no, I'm the Tea Party guy, trying to make a joke. Yeah, that didn't go over well either. But anyway, I'm kind of digressing a little bit here. The thing about it is, and I really didn't start noticing it until after she became an admin, like, I posted the op-ed piece where Putin was railing against America and our exceptionalism and blah blah blah. Well, she pulled out her favorite little parts and said, these are my favorite bits here. And of course, they were some of the nastiest, meanest things that Obama, or might as well say Obama, but Putin said about America. So I started paying closer attention to what she was posting. And, instead of just taking everything at face value, started kind of looking into it a little bit more. And that's one of the reasons, and after talking to my cousin and seeing some things that remembering some things that he posted around election time, the first time, or no, I guess it was this last time, because he's not that old. Anyway, sorry, digressing again. But the simple fact of the matter is, for a good portion of the folks from about the 18 to 29 range, they don't think America's a great place to be anymore. They're disillusioned with the country as a whole. They don't think that it was founded for any type of a just cause or good reason. They basically look at it as a bunch of rich white guys who decided they wanted their own place to do whatever the hell they wanted to do and screw the rest of the world. And that's how they honestly look at it. The country was founded on a bunch of rich white slave owners who wanted to take advantage of the rest of the world. I've seen that expressed over and over again on various pages in various places. And it typically happens between about the age of 18 and 29. Now, I'm not saying as a whole that's the case. I've seen quite a few younger conservative pages coming up. But the problem that I have with those is, don't take my conservative card away. But the problem that I have with those is most of the time all they're really doing is parroting the ideas they see on other pages and not really giving any thought to anything that they're putting out. That's one of the things that we really tried to do on the Common Ground page. You know, I would occasionally post things that were either funny or trying to make a joke or maybe a meme to try to draw in some attention. Because let's face it, I'm trying to build a brand. That's another thing that folks that don't really seem to understand. This stuff isn't just a hobby for me. I'm trying to build an alternative to news and information. One, because I think anymore everything's too slanted one way or the other. And let's face it, sometimes the truth is in the middle. But again, this all started on a false premise. Because I assumed if I stripped everything down and got rid of all the crap that everybody wanted to fight over, that we all still basically felt the same thing in our bones. Which is, we're proud we're Americans, we're happy to be in America, and it's a great place to be. It's not true anymore. Not for a good portion of our population. I've seen it over and over again, where folks, whether it's in a quiz or whether it's a question that's been asked outright, will say things like, why should I be proud that I'm an American? It's happenstance that I was born here. I'm sorry. So, because you had no direct result in the fact that you were born into the greatest country in the world, you shouldn't be happy about that fact? What the hell are you smoking? Because let's face it, somebody had to make a decision to get you here, and it was not an easy decision. I'm only third generation. If not for great-grandparents on both sides, there's no telling where I'd be, or what country I would have been born into. And nowhere else in the world can I take what started as a hobby and find ways to start turning it into a business. Because that's what I'm doing. I've done it before. I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to take the lessons I learned the first time and apply them to this one so that I can get it done right. You can't do that pretty much anywhere else in the world. Not without going through all kinds of red tape, regulations, and hoopla. I mean, there's some forms I need to fill out, and there's some stuff I need to get filed within the next few months, but that's really all there is to it. I'm already making connections. I'm already building up an image. I'm already building up a brand. And we've got a really big event coming in January that we're basically co-sponsoring that I'll have more information about later. And all of this started because I wanted to put together a Facebook page because I was tired of all the things that were going on that I felt like nobody was paying attention to. And then I decided, hey, if I can do this on Facebook, why can't I do it on the radio? Or why can't I start a blog? Or why can't I do this? And the rest of it is history. So again, for all of you out there who are the 18 to 29-year-old crowd who are like, oh, America sucks, capitalism's evil, corporations are bad, they don't pay people enough. You know what? The last part I'll kind of give you. There are several corporations that don't pay people what they should. But that's not your decision. That's their decision. It's called a free market. If they don't like what they're getting paid, they can find ways to make better money. Make better money. It's not impossible. It's hard, but it's not impossible. I mean, come on. I know someone who I'm not going to mention by name who came from a questionable past, managed to turn their life around, and now makes several $1,000s a month off of websites and YouTube videos. Yes, you heard me. I said YouTube videos. The point is, there are plenty of ways out there to find ways to make ends meet, to find ways to make better money. The simple fact of the matter is you have to decide at some point that you don't want to be a damn fry cook to make it happen. That's a decision you have to make. You are the one responsible for your future and your destiny. No one but you. That's what we're forgetting in this country, and that's what's really, really, really starting to piss me off. Because that's one of the things that set me off on the page the other day, and I finally just went off, and actually the admin who posted the whole thing pulled it down because of how badly I went off. Because there was something posted about, it had some stupid black and white comic strip thing, and it had all these things like grocery bill, gas bill, blah, 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 and they're represented by big grown-up adults. And then standing in front of someone who's pointing at it and yelling at it is a little kid wearing a t-shirt that says salary. Okay, first of all, since all of you liberal idiots like to go all grammar Nazi, not everybody gets paid a salary. Sorry, had to get that off my chest because you guys are the first ones to point out when anybody has a typo or says something stupid or accidentally puts a comma in the wrong place. And all of a sudden, you're going to put a comic thing together, and t-shirt says salary, and all of a sudden, everyone's like, oh, yeah, that's true. Bullshit. Not everybody makes salary. Some people make hourly. Sorry, did it again. One of these days, I'll reinstall the filter between my brain and my mouth. Apparently not today. Okay, so that being said, there was a whole big, long, drawn-out discussion where basically the leftist admin and one of the more boisterous leftist contributors, commenters, was basically railing against the corporation, how they're evil and they don't pay enough and it's their fault and then someone tried to say something about, well, shouldn't it at least some of the blame be with the person who's working at that particular job? And someone made one of the folks made the comment of, trying to blame the workers, nothing but a useless obfuscation. Which is where I started to lose it. I was at work, but there wasn't too much going on, so I was kind of looking things over, and I saw that, so I posted, that's funny, that, none of the blame or responsibility should be falling onto the shoulders of the worker, because, they have the ability to make choices as to what they do with their lives. And before anybody gets me started, oh, you don't understand, there's people that have gone to school for 14 years and now they're having to flip burgers at McDonald's because they can't get a job in their chosen field. Okay, so here's my obvious retort to that particular statement. If you're smart enough that you're going to need to spend 14 years in college to be able to get a degree to do the job that you want to do, maybe you should have looked into that field to make sure there was going to be room for you by the time you got out of freaking college. Because that's the thing that ticks me off, is everybody, well, we have all these people with college degrees who can't get jobs, blah, 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 blah. Like, okay, how is that my fault? You chose your field, you went to school, you got the degree, and now you can't get a job in it, so now I'm supposed to pay you $15 an hour, which is going to wind up being some sort of government subsidy by the time it's all over, so you can flip burgers at McDonald's? Screw you. I didn't tell you to take that job. I don't have the most glamorous, best job in the world either, but I'm not griping at you about it. I don't gripe to anybody about my job. I go do my job, well, except for a few people, but I don't normally do it on the air. But anyway, I go, I do my job, I do it to the best of my ability every day that I'm there, because that's what they pay me to do. And I take the things that I've learned over the years from the different jobs that I've had, and I use those things to make sure that I can either, if I choose to, decide to get a better job, either within this company, or at the same time, as I said, I'm taking my spare time, and I am building a company of my own. Because that's what you can do here. So yes, it is somewhat the responsibility of the worker. And yes, I will tell you up front, even as a conservative, I wish there were more corporations that followed business models like Costco. But you can't make them do it. Because if you make them do it, all they're going to do, because they're greedy little buttheads, is pass the price gouging along to the customer. So then, yes, you're making $15 an hour to run a line at Walmart. But then, what was $5 at Walmart the day before that happened is now $6. So by the time you get, let's say you were making $10 before. So basically, let's just say, for the sake of argument, to make the math easy, that everything at Walmart goes up by 75 cents the day that they suddenly start having to pay folks $15 an hour. Now you say, well, why would they do that? They already have plenty of profit. No, they don't. Not as far as they're concerned, because they have to answer to their shareholders, and their shareholders want a certain percentage. And by you forcing them to raise their pay rates, they suddenly don't have that percentage to work with anymore. So what are they going to do? Go to their shareholders and say, sorry, sucks to be you, we have to pay $15 an hour now? No, because you know what's going to happen? Joe Schmo CEO is going to lose his job if he tries to do that. And Joe Schmo CEO isn't going to take a pay cut of his own, because he's probably got 14 million mortgages on half the crap that he owns all across the world, so he can't afford to pay for half the crap that he owns anyway, even though he makes $4 million a year, because nobody lives within their means anymore. So again, all of this is the responsibility of the individuals. You are working at Walmart. You don't have to work there. You can work there, do the job to the best of your ability until you can find another one, or until you can find your own little niche to do the things that you really want to do. That's why this country is the way it is. And to quote one of our other admins, and it's something that I didn't think about until I saw her post it. It's a quote from Henry Ford. If you think you can do it, then you will do it. If you think you can't, then you won't. It really is that flippin' simple, and until people start remembering that, we are screwed. There are so many opportunities out there, so many things that even I didn't think about. Especially with the internet. Okay, so you're unemployed. Do you have teenagers in your house? Do they play video games a lot? Do you have a camcorder? Or a webcam? Because guess what? They can make walkthroughs for the video games. As long as you don't have anything in them that's copyright violation, and it's just them playing the games and showing people how to do what they do, you can monetize those. And the more times people click on them, the more money you're going to get. I know people that make hundreds of dollars a month from video game walkthroughs. And you people are telling me that there aren't ways to make money? Seriously? Have you lost your minds? I mean, come on, I've only been doing this since February, and no, I'm not making very much cash flow off of it yet, but I'm already starting to exchange advertising for goods and services that are worth hundreds of dollars a month. Those who believe they can do something will do it. Those who believe they can't do something won't do it. Or to coin a phrase from Yoda that I won't play over here, there is no try, do, or do not. If you don't want to spend the rest of your life working at Walmart, then you have options. You can find ways to bring in a little bit of extra money on the side so that you don't have to be on food stamps while you're working at Walmart, which honestly I do believe is crap, I'm not going to lie. But again, if we force them to pay better wages, all they're going to do is pass the cost on to the consumer. And let's remember, before I got sidetracked, I was going to do a little bit of math. If every item at Walmart goes up by 75 cents, and all of a sudden you're making an extra $5 an hour, okay, so let's say you purchase 20 items a week at Walmart, and an additional 75 cents, that already pretty much burns up a good portion of the extra $5 an hour you were just getting. And that's not just going to happen at Walmart. If suddenly we have a new national minimum wage where $7.50 becomes $10 or $10 becomes $15, what happens to the little stores? that's what killed my business the first time, folks. That's why this time, if I get anything going, it's going to be a handful of people helping me run things behind the scenes who I know are interested in making sure that things happen. And I'm not going to have a staff other than the hosts and a couple of people, only because as long as I know that people are interested in helping me and actually want to work for a living, I should be able to keep things humming along just fine. But that's what killed my business the first time, folks, because I was trying to make a name for myself in an industry where there were already quite a few people. So I was undercutting to the bare minimum what I could to make sure that I could find contracts to be able to put people to work, that I would have a little bit of residual off of those contracts to be able to pay my overhead. And for the longest time, actually for the whole time I was working, I was even one of the folks standing posts because I didn't have enough of an overhead where I could just say, okay, I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars and I'm going to live off of what's left. No, because I never made that kind of money. There were times when I made good money, but there were also times when I went hungry. As the boss, that's how things are. In the good times, you are rocking and rolling, and in the bad times, your folks get paid when you have to pay them, and you sometimes go hungry. And then there's times when suddenly someone hasn't paid you for 3 months, and someone's knocking on your door going, okay, you gave me an advance a month ago, and you told me you were going to have it this month, and you're going, well, you see, what happened was, that's what started happening. The economy tanked. People that were paying me on time suddenly weren't paying me on time. People that were had me listed as vendors, suddenly I went from getting paid once every 30 days to getting paid a lump sum once every 90 days because it just made things easier for their tax purposes, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. These are the unintended consequences every time minimum wage goes up, especially if it's something that is forced into the system. Especially if you really stop and think about it, when there are other ways we could accomplish the same exact thing. And I've never heard a good argument as to why it cannot be done the way that I'm about to talk about, other than being told that I'm a greedy capitalist at heart who always will put the best interest of a company above the employees. No, I've already told you up front. As far as I'm concerned, I wish every corporation in America would follow a model similar to Costco's. They don't. I can't make them. I shouldn't make them, because then all they do is punish everybody else. But what we can do is, instead of using the stick approach and saying, okay, whether you want to or not, you're going to pay these folks $15 an hour. Okay, so minimum wage right now is $7.50 nationally, well, except for California. I think they just raised it. But nationally, the set level is $7.50. And sometimes it varies depending on state. So let's just say that suddenly the Obama administration decided, hey, raising minimum wage probably isn't a good idea, but what if we do it this way? So what if we actually pass a tax reform for businesses that say, hey, you guys have to file taxes quarterly, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to look at the number of people you have on your payroll. We're going to make sure that the majority of the people that are on your payroll are paid X amount above minimum wage, other than your temporary or seasonal employees. And as long as you have met that requirement, then we're going to cut you a break on your taxes quarterly at a certain percentage. See, here's the thing with that. Suddenly, it gives a company an incentive to pay somebody more money because, hey, if I give them a little bit more money off the top, I get more money back on my taxes. I can't think of a business owner who wouldn't jump all over that with the stupid freaking taxes that business owners have to pay anymore. So why can we not use a common sense approach to this crap instead of saying, ooh, corporations are evil, minimum wage needs to be higher? Really, we've tried that several times. What happens to prices every single time? And I'm not even a great big proponent of across-the-board tax cuts. There are certain things that I think should be cut from taxes. Hell, if you want my honest opinion, I think we should go to some sort of a fair tax. Something that's basically a flat rate and depending on certain income levels, you get what's called a prepay check, and you go from there. Because at least then, even the folks that are panhandling on the corner are at least going to have to pay something into the system. They may wind up getting some money back every quarter, but at least we're getting some money from them instead of them. I mean, let's face it, folks. This is how ingenious some people in this country are, and this is why the ones that really, I just want to just look at them and laugh. They're like, all I can do is work at Walmart and make $7.50 an hour. Dude, I've seen people that are freaking panhandling on the street. They get all dirtied up. They throw on the worst clothes they can find. This, of course, is after they drive somewhere around the corner in their Lexus. They get out. They put on all these nasty freaking clothes. They go stand on the street corner for 8 hours, and they're making $2,000 and $3,000 a day tax free. And then they go put all their slacks and stuff back on, go clean themselves up at a McDonald's bathroom or whatever, and go home. And as far as their wife's concerned, they're still an accountant, they're still a tax attorney, or still whatever. Because they're actually at this point making more money than they were making as a tax attorney panhandling on the freaking corner. Is it legal? No. Is it moral? No. But my whole freaking point is, if somebody can go stand on a street corner and make that kind of money, all you folks that are griping about having to work at McDonald's or Walmart and everything else, how about you use a little bit of ingenuity for once instead of waiting for the system to take care of you? Oh, and that'll be a topic for next week's story, or next week's show, I guess, because at this point we are about to run out of time. I'm going to go ahead and cut this one off at the 90-minute mark. I don't know. I think I may start using a little more time over here. Seems like things run a little smoother over here. But I also can't hear the audio, so I don't even know if you guys can hear me right now. But anyway, it has been my pleasure hanging out with you guys. For those of you new to the show, there will be a little more story content to the one next week. Hopefully, we'll be back at our regular scheduled time of 8:30 Monday morning. I am going to start having some of our other solo hosts come over here and do shows from time to time as well. Because, like I said, over at BTR, we can only do one show a day. Over here, I can do 3 hours at a time if I want, and do as many a day as I want. So far there are some things that I like about this one, but again, this is only about the third time I've used it, so still learning my ropes over here, trying to figure a few things out, and we are going to go ahead and close out what's left with a little bit of a song here, and then we are going to call it a day. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for checking us out. We'll be back next week. Again, don't forget to tune in to the BTR channel tomorrow for Finding Common Ground. That is, of course, hosted by me, Rob, otherwise known as Double R, and my good buddy Dave, a.k.a. Oklahoma Lefty. Basically, one cranky conservative, one hacked-off Jeffersonian liberal, trying to put differences aside and find ways to keep this country humming along before it really does come off the rails. You have a great day. Thanks for checking us out.
when it's cut into tiny little pieces. Your face will never look the same when it's cut into tiny little pieces. And so someone's gotta go, and I think you know just who it is. And so someone's gotta go, and I think you know just who it is. 'Cause your face will never look the same when it's cut into tiny little pieces. Your face will never look the same when it's cut into tiny little pieces. Turn this page of sorrow, still this chapter feels so hollow now. Maybe we move on, maybe we lose your tiny little face. Same when it's cut into tiny little pieces. And so someone's gotta go, and I think you know just who it is.
Alright, folks, well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of America Off the Rails. I understand this one was a little bit extemporaneous, but it's been my pleasure sitting in with you guys today. I really hope you enjoy it, and we will be back next week. Again, don't forget to check out the BTR channel for the shows that we have going over there. And you actually, hang on, let me go ahead and make sure you guys can get out of here. Okay, doors open again. I guess I need to find a better clapping sound effect before next week. Anyway, you guys have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. For those of you, sorry, it is only Monday, but this is my Friday, if that makes you feel any better. Definitely makes me feel better.